Amazing moment, waitress buys coffee for struggling dad and daughter, unbelievable secret revealed. Charlie sat at the window table of the small cafe, droplets racing down the glass, mirroring his restless thoughts. Mia, perched across from him, was animatedly narrating the adventure of raindrops, her innocent laughter a stark contrast to his weary heart. His mind raced as it always did, analyzing the tiny coins left in his pocket. It had been 2 weeks since he had enough to spare for extra treats, and he felt the weight of that deprivation like a lead weight in his stomach. Every day bled into the next, his 2 jobs barely scraping by while Mia's lively spirit required nourishment beyond the meager dinners they often had. He wanted to give her the world, make her dreams a reality, but how could he? The whispers of friends and neighbors floated in his head, "You're just a single dad. You'll never make it." A part of him knew their doubts echoed his insecurities, the gnawing fear of repeating the cycle of struggle and disappointment. Before he could spiral deeper, his focus darted to Mia, who was now delightedly watching the rhythmic splash of puddles outside. Her joy felt infectious, but guilt crept in, dulling the brightness of the moment. Why should she have to find happiness in such ordinary things? A longing tugged at him, wanting to provide more. He could hear the dreams he had for her of education, art, travel getting tangled in doubt. Could he really change their fate? The frantic sound of a vehicle pulled him from his reverie. It was Jen, the waitress he often saw, and for a moment, her warm smile sparked something within him. She approached their table, balancing 2 steaming cups of coffee. "This one's on me," she said, her eyes shining with kindness as she placed the cups before them. Confusion washed over Charlie, a wave of gratitude intermingled with a smattering of disbelief. Was this an act of charity or an invitation? As they began to talk, Jen shared her dreams of art, her passion for painting, ambition for recognition. Charlie felt a strange connection in their vulnerabilities, as if fate had conspired to throw them into each other's orbit. But the warmth of this budding friendship was quickly clouded by the chill of reality. They both knew how the world could be unkind, people dismissing their aspirations, whispering that they were not worthy of more than the humdrum lives they led. "It's easy for others to say what we can't do," Jen observed with quiet strength, igniting a fire within Charlie. Yes, they had dreams, but they were pinned down by the weight of their circumstances, the fear of never escaping the quicksand of their realities. Even as he felt hope clawing its way through his doubts, the pressure mounted, tightening around his chest. Before he could speak again, a rush of thoughts overwhelmed him. "Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." Just then a loud crash echoed from the back of the cafe, snapping Charlie back to reality, jolting his thoughts. He turned, heart racing, his skin prickling with anxiety. Whatever small comfort he and Jen found in their connection hung precariously now as the looming shadows of their struggles grew more palpable. The coffee cups, warming his hands, couldn't shield them from the truth. Obstacles lay ahead they could hardly see past. What revelation could possibly await them around the corner? Would they have the fortitude to face it together? He squinted into the crowd, investigating both their futures tethered to a single moment that could either bind them in unity or unravel everything they had just begun to build. Charlie's heart pounded, still reeling from the energetic buzz of their conversation turned to chaos. At the back of the cafe, patrons had risen from their seats, their eyes on the source of the commotion. He could hear the whisper of confusion, the rustle of chairs being pushed aside. "What was that?" Mia asked, her voice tinged with curiosity laced with innocence. "Just a little distraction, sweetie. Nothing to worry about," he replied, though he wasn't convinced. As his gaze drifted back to Jen, he noticed a flicker of concern in her eyes, a shared fear lingering between them. She reached for his hand, squeezing it lightly, a gesture that spoke volumes amid the brewing uncertainty. The noise subsided gradually, but the energy had shifted. People resumed their seats, punctuating moments of surprised laughter with wary glances. It felt ironic, he thought, how in a place designed to offer warmth and comfort, chaos could so easily fracture small connections. What if this moment signaled more than just a simple disruption? Using the tension as a propellant, Charlie felt an unexpected surge of courage wash over him. He turned to Jen. "You know, hearing you talk about your dreams made me realize something." "Oh." She raised an eyebrow, curiosity intermingled with surprise. "I think I need to stop thinking of our hardships as barriers and start viewing them as stepping stones," he confessed, the weight of each syllable tightening around his throat. "At least, I want that for Mia. If I can see a path for her, maybe I need to begin finding one for myself." The look of admiration blossoming on her face ignited something inside him, a flicker of hope paired with clarity. Their circumstances may not change overnight, but if he could frame his struggles positively, perhaps he could find the energy to pursue personal growth. "What is stopping you from following your own dreams?" Jen asked gently, her voice capturing the vulnerability of their shared moment. "You've got so much potential, Charlie." He took a breath, the weight of her question settling like a solid rock in his heart. His entire life had revolved around providing for Mia. While that was noble, he realized how neglecting his own aspirations had diminished him. Could he possibly balance the act of being a father while chasing what he truly wanted? "I guess," he began, wrestling with the truth. "I'm terrified of failing. What if I try and it leads to more disappointment?" "Fear of failure can't hold you back," she said, affirming him with a steadiness in her tone. "You'll never know what you're capable of if you don't take that first step." In those moments, with the cafe's warmth wrapping around them like a cozy blanket, Charlie felt the flame inside him flickering bright. It wasn't a mere spark, it was a slow burn of determination built on the weight of their shared stories. Yes, with every ounce of energy he poured into his day-to-day struggles for Mia, he needed to pour some into his own revival. Charlie's thoughts danced around ideas, quick sketches of goals of a small online store, a platform to share his ideas and creativity while managing a parent's responsibilities. Just the thought felt exhilarating yet terrifying. What if he started with a blog, documenting their journey amidst adversity? Mia deserves a father who believes in dreams. "I want to be that father," he admitted, voice low, eyes locking onto Jen's with newfound resolve. As she smiled back, something shifted, an understanding that perhaps they were both standing at a precipice, ready to leap into the unknown together. But just as that thought settled, the clinking noise of jangling keys caught their attention. A shadowy figure loomed at the entrance of the cafe, and an unsettling silence enveloped the room once again. Who was this, and what were they about to disrupt? Now, Charlie stepped back, bracing himself for whatever event might unfold, ready to confront any intrusions that surged into his hard-won clarity. As the figure in the doorway shifted, the light caught his silhouette, revealing a face Charlie couldn't recognize but felt an unsettling familiarity with. Anxiety gripped him, tightening his chest. Almost instinctively, he turned to Mia, who still sat wide-eyed with innocence, and gently squeezed her shoulder. "Stay close," he said, his voice dropping to a whisper. Mia nodded, her small hand finding his. The cafe still buzzed softly, unaware of the tension that had just settled like a dense fog over their table. Charlie's gaze flicked back to the newcomer, who now stepped fully into the light. It was an older gentleman, his attire slightly scruffy, but his expression was open, almost hopeful. As the man walked slowly toward them, Charlie's heart raced. What did he want? Was he seeking help, or was he someone who would disrupt the fragile moment of clarity he had been grasping? "Excuse me," the older man began, pausing mid-sentence as his eyes scanned the room until they landed on Charlie and Mia. "I couldn't help but overhear your conversation." Charlie's mind spun with potential scenarios. Was this man about to criticize their plans? "I'm not here to intrude," the man continued, his tone sincere. "I just felt compelled to say something." You remind me of myself, lost yet determined. Charlie was taken aback. He barely knew this man, how could he possibly understand? The words cut through the tension he felt exposed. It forced him to confront the very vulnerability he had been trying to embrace. What do you mean? Charlie asked, a mix of resistance and curiosity in his voice. I struggled for years, the man replied, an edge of vulnerability trailing behind his certainty. I had a daughter just like yours, and I spent so long caught in the fear you mentioned, afraid to chase my dreams. I held back my whole life until one day, I realized that every opportunity one passed up was a lesson not learned. Charlie absorbed the weight of the stranger's testimony. The part of him that had only wanted to escape the moment now rallied behind the man's words. Finally, I started a little project, something just for myself. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. And to this day, I remember that leap. It brought me more joy than I ever thought possible. As a silence enveloped their exchange, the weight of his message settled into Charlie's bones. The passion behind the man's words ignited a flicker of urgency. He felt the necessity to translate this unexpected wisdom into his own narrative. Do you still pursue that project? Charlie probed, the urge to learn more pushing through his hesitation. Absolutely. In fact, I'm here today in part to support fellow dreamers in this community. I started a small fund to help people like you begin, in whatever way I can. Charlie's heartbeat quickened, hope clashed against doubt. An idea unfurled in his mind, fragile and full of promise. What if he could turn his dreams into a reality with practical support? But what if I fail again? He stammered, the old fears rising uninvited to the forefront of his mind. Failure isn't the end, my friend. It's a chapter, not the whole story, the man replied, his sincerity wrapping itself around Charlie like an embrace. You owe it to yourself to try. Charlie stumbled through that mental labyrinth of doubt, considering the man's conviction in the possibility of future endeavors. Could he really harness the support to turn his hopes into functional ambitions? Gradually, the weight of deliberation shifted into active consideration. He imagined himself blogging about their lives, and those shared experiences bubbling into a small online store, each venture a possibility waiting to be explored. Before he could cling tightly to this newfound enthusiasm, a burst of familiar laughter jolted him back to the moment. Mia's giggle cut through the air, breaking his concentration as she leaned in closer to Jen, who was now beaming with pride. Look, Daddy. The nice man is Mia, Charlie quickly interjected, a sense of urgency forcing his words. Let us focus. But before he could address the man with intention, a realization surged within him. The stranger was right, the time for passivity was over. If there had ever been a moment urging him to take that leap, it was now, despite the chaos surrounding them. Charlie turned his attention back to the older man, who smiled encouragingly, somehow understanding all that was unspoken between them. You've got this, the man encouraged. But just then, the cafe door swung open with a force that made the entrance jingle violently, and a group of unfamiliar faces strolled in, charging toward the man like a storm. Charlie, what is happening? Jen asked, her eyes wide with apprehension. The tension in the room climbed, mingled with the unquantifiable anxiety of the unknown. In this moment of personal revelation, something darker had arrived to test everything he had just begun to embrace. Charlie's breath caught, the unfamiliar faces now turning into potential threats not just to their safety but to the clarity he had only just begun to grasp. He wondered if the disruptions ever truly ended or if he would need to fight for his transformation unexpectedly as chaos continued to unfold. Charlie felt the air shift, tension thickening the atmosphere like a heavy fog. His instincts kicked in as he shifted his body slightly, placing himself protectively in front of Mia. Whatever uncertainty lay ahead, he felt an overwhelming need to shield her from it. The congregation of unfamiliar figures, collectively charged with palpable energy and urgency, intruded upon their moment of solace. I need to. He started to speak, but the words caught in his throat. The older man had stiffened, his earlier warmth now engulfed by a palpable discomfort. Charlie could see the flicker of recognition in his eyes, and it ignited a whirlpool of questions. Who were these newcomers? And what connection did they have to the man standing before him? "Excuse me," one of the newcomers called out, stepping closer. She appeared to be in her late 20s, a sharp gaze juxtaposed against the vibrant hue of her red scarf that wrapped tightly around her neck. "Are you Caleb? We've been looking for you." The name resonated unnervingly, wrapping around Charlie's thoughts like a vine. It felt familiar, pulling at shadows deep within him. He glanced at the older man, who appeared torn between wanting to retreat and defending his ground. Without thinking, Charlie stepped forward, his heart racing. This was a defining moment. He had to confront this chaos rather than let it consume him. "What do you want with him?" The words spilled out, steady yet tinged with defiance. "Charlie, don't," the old man said, placing a hand on Charlie's arm, his voice a mix of urgency and calm. "This is my past catching up with me." The red-scarfed woman crossed her arms, her expression softening slightly. "We just need to talk. Please, it's important." Mia, still attached to Charlie, sensed the shift in energy, her eyes darting between the newcomers and her father. Charlie knelt to her level, the elements of protection and explanation intertwining within him. "Stay close, Mia. This might get complicated." He turned back, steeling himself for whatever confrontation laid in wait. "What is going on?" The group seemed to hesitate, gauging the atmosphere. The leader, a man with closely cropped hair, flicked his gaze from Charlie to Mia. "We are here to help Caleb," he said flatly. "He has a project we can assist with, but it's not safe. There are people looking for him." As the words registered, Charlie felt a fissure of anxiety crack open in his chest. The older man Caleb was in deeper waters than he had anticipated. Charlie's instinct to protect Mia battled against an insatiable curiosity. "What project? That you think he needs help?" Caleb took a deep breath, looking older in that moment. "It's something I've been working on to support people in need, just as I want to help you. But there are those who believe it threatens their interests," he replied, his voice strained yet resolute. Charlie's mind raced, fragments of his earlier aspirations flickering in and out. He had been grappling with the idea of pursuing his passions, and now here was a tangible connection, a shared purpose that could drive a different life trajectory. "What if you can't protect it? What if they stop you?" "Then we take action," Caleb said, meeting Charlie's eyes with a fervent intensity. "I won't let fear dictate my life any longer, and neither should you. You should channel this moment into your own intention." The words hit Charlie like a bolt of lightning, igniting a realization. It wasn't just about Caleb, it was about an opportunity he hadn't fully embraced for himself. There was power in creating something alongside someone else's journey, fortifying his own. The urgency around them remained palpable, but Charlie felt something shift internally. The fear he had carried was fading, and determination began to grow roots. "I want to help," he said, the conviction growing in his voice. "Not just for me, but for Mia. For everyone struggling." Caleb's expression brightened, the flicker of hope igniting a flame in his eyes. "Together then," he said, urgency blending with newfound ambition. But amidst their resolve, the group of newcomers shifted uneasily, and the woman in the red scarf spoke up again. "We can help, but it's going to demand more than all of you might be willing to give." "Then we'll do it," Charlie replied, echoing the resolve that coursed through him. Bursting forth, he felt an intensity rising, fueled by direct action rather than fear. Before they could strategize further, a raucous sound erupted from within the cafe's depths, a glass shattering followed by a muffled shout. Charlie's stomach plummeted as he turned to see the source of the chaos. This was no longer just a conversation, it was a turning point, a realization that both danger and opportunity intertwined. Charlie's heart raced with the dawning understanding that the moment to define his journey had arrived, and ahead lay a storm that tested every hesitation he'd ever known. He steeled himself for what was to come, a confrontation not only with external threats but also with the parts of himself he had suppressed for far too long. The future seemed uncertain, yet exhilarating, as he prepared for the inevitable call to action. Could he truly find the courage to seize the chaos and reshape it into something worthwhile, both for himself and for Mia? The chaos reverberated through the cafe as Charlie's heart raced, the sound of shattering glass sending a ripple of adrenaline coursing through him. Instinctively, he turned to protect Mia, shielding her from sight while his mind whirled. The urgency of the situation was no longer a distant concern, it was an immediate reality. "Stay behind me," he whispered to her, squaring his shoulders as he reluctantly released the protective grip he had around her. Caleb and the newcomers, each caught in their own web of fear and determination, shared a glance that spoke volumes. In that moment, Charlie felt the collective consciousness of the group shift, mounting an unspoken acknowledgement of what lay ahead. The leader of the newcomers, now staring toward the cafe's interior, was the first to gather himself. "We should move. There could be more trouble coming." His sharp gaze cut through the tension, instantly drawing Charlie's focus back to his own internal narrative. This was a moment where indecision could lead to a failure that wasn't just his alone. "What is going on? Who are those people?" Charlie pressed, desperation creeping into his tone. He needed context, a brief escape from the chaos that threatened to consume him. "They might not be here for us," Caleb answered, his voice steady yet laced with concern. "But if they see me, it could be bad." "There's no letting this go," Charlie replied, suddenly resolute. "They came for you, and we need to find a way to protect you and Mia." The words hung in the air, charged with the gravity of his commitment. He was no longer an observer in his own life, the ripple effect of his choices had transformed him into an active participant, one who would lead rather than follow. The woman in the red scarf stepped forward, urgency fueling her movements. "We have to get out of sight. There's a back exit. Come on." Without waiting for agreement, she turned towards the cafe's inner sanctum, beckoning for them to follow. Charlie took Mia's hand, a gesture both protective and symbolic of the new reality he was navigating. They moved swiftly, heartbeats racing in synchronization as they teetered between fear and purpose. The cafe's atmosphere shifted dramatically, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee now combined with the palpable tension of potential threat. Outside, the remnants of a mundane afternoon loomed, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing just inside. Once through the back door, the group found themselves within a narrow alley that smelled of dampness and forgotten memories. Charlie's thoughts raced, piecing together fragments of the conversation that had abruptly unraveled their lives. "What project?" he questioned, needing to draw the roadmap of possibilities from Caleb and the newcomers. Caleb paused, his brow furrowed in thought. "It's a community initiative aimed at creating support systems for those in distress. But there's significant conflict surrounding it. Not just criminal interests, but corruption. I can't let them manipulate it." Fingers tightening around Mia's small hand, Charlie weighed his options. The mixture of fear and resolve surged within him like a tidal wave threatening to pull him under or propel him forward. "Then let's change the narrative," he said, his voice rising through the alleyway's oppressive silence. His statement hung in the air as another wave of chaos echoed from the cafe behind them, muffled voices, shouts, and the unmistakable sound of footsteps gathering. It was time to either buckle under the pressure or rise above it. "It's not just about protecting Caleb or this project," Charlie articulated, gathering momentum in his thoughts. "It's about ultimately doing what I've always hesitated to pursue, finding a purpose through action. Let's turn this fear into something constructive." The group turned their attention to Charlie, each face etched with a mixture of surprise and suspicion. Some saw a leader while others saw a fool. Mia squeezed his hand, her soft grip anchoring him amidst the uncertainty, reminding him that whatever happened next had to be geared toward something greater than himself. As the footsteps grew louder, the reality of the stakes crystallized into focus. This was their moment. No longer just a participant in his own life, Charlie was teetering on a precipice, facing the chaos head-on while daring to redefine what it truly meant to be courageous. But just as the adrenaline surged within him, a figure emerged from the shadows, a silhouette neither friend nor foe. The moment chilled Charlie's resolve. Who was this new player about to disrupt all that he had planned? Would this stranger serve as an ally or another obstacle in the already tangled web they were entangled within? As the figure stepped into the dim light of the alley, Charlie's heart skipped a beat. The shadows cloaked the stranger, making it impossible to see their face, but the tension crackled in the air, pulling Charlie's focus from the chaos behind them. He needed to act instinctively, hesitation could cost him everything. "Who are you?" Charlie demanded, his voice steady despite the apprehension gnawing at him. His protective instincts flared, pushing him to position himself slightly in front of Mia, a wall between her and the uncertainty that loomed before them. The stranger remained quiet for a heartbeat longer than Charlie deemed acceptable, their silhouette shifting as they weighed the situation. With a subtle movement, they stepped closer, allowing the dim light to reveal a young woman, perhaps just a few years older than Charlie himself. There was an intensity in her eyes, a mix of determination and urgency that mirrored his own. "I'm here to help," she finally said, her voice confident but urgent. "You need to move, now. They're searching for Caleb, and they won't stop until they find him." Charlie glanced at Caleb, who was now pale and tense, contemplating the implications of this newcomer's warning. Every instinct within Charlie urged him to trust her, yet a nagging doubt insinuated that this could be a trap. "Why should we trust you?" Charlie questioned, taking a step forward. "How do we know you're not? Because I have something that can change everything," she interrupted, reaching into her pocket and pulling out a small flash drive. "This contains everything you need to expose them. The corruption, their plans, it can all be taken down, but not unless you act fast." A wave of realization washed over Charlie. This wasn't just about protecting Caleb or keeping Mia safe, this was a chance to reclaim some control. The underlying urgency of the moment propelled him forward. "How do we use it?" The woman nodded, seeing the determination in Charlie's eyes. "First, we need a secure location to upload it somewhere they can't trace it." Her gaze flicked to Caleb, gauging his reaction. "Once we do that, we can formulate a plan to dismantle their operation." Fear and doubt coursed through Charlie's mind as her words settled. Direct confrontation was never what he envisioned for his life, but a flicker of resolve ignited within him. What Charlie hadn't realized was that this moment was his defining crucible, a turning point that could strip away the layers of indecision he had always harbored. Protecting Mia and Caleb was no longer enough, he had the power to contribute towards something significantly larger. "Let us do it," he declared firmly, feeling solid resolve crystallize from his earlier chaos. "We'll find a place, and then we can act." As the group prepared to move, unnatural noises erupted from the cafe, underscoring the urgency of their situation. Each step forward carried the weight of newfound responsibility, forcing Charlie to confront fears he had long avoided. The alley grew tighter as they pushed onward, and Charlie felt a mix of exhilaration and apprehension. The shadows coalesced into a mirror reflecting his internal battle between safety and risk, between passivity and agency. Suddenly, the woman halted, signaling for silence. "We're not far from an old office nearby. If we can make it without being seen, we'll have a chance." Charlie met her fierce gaze with a firm nod. He would not back down now. The stakes were higher than he anticipated, but with each step, Charlie began to understand that courage was not merely a response to fear, it was a choice to move forward regardless of the uncertainty. As they advanced, a faint sound echoed in the distance, one that sent a shiver down Charlie's spine. Heavy boots marched through the alley, growing louder with each passing moment. "Get ready," the woman whispered urgently. "This is where it gets tricky." His heart raced at the imminent danger, yet beneath the tremor of fear was an undeniable sense of purpose. What he didn't know was that this moment would set off a chain reaction, forcing Charlie to confront not just external threats but the internal fears that had held him captive all his life. Before he could take a breath, a shout erupted from the entrance of the alley, "There they are! Don't let them escape!" In that heartbeat, everything he had chosen to stand for would be tested. Would his newfound courage be enough to lead them out of the darkness? Charlie's instincts kicked in. Adrenaline surged through his veins as he signaled to Mia and Caleb to stay close. There was no time for hesitation. His mind raced, calculating their options in the dwindling seconds before the chaos erupted. The heavy boots drew nearer, and their resolve solidified into a shared urgency. "Follow me," Charlie instructed, turning towards a narrow passageway that veered off the alley. Its shadowed entrance seemed to invite them into a darker secrecy, the very thing Charlie once feared. They plunged into it together, the stench of damp brick and history enveloping them. It felt claustrophobic, yet oddly liberating, the kind of space where decisions carried weight far beyond the moment. "I need you to trust me," he said to the woman as they moved deeper into the passage. She nodded, and for the first time, he felt an unspoken alliance between them, like threads weaving a new narrative. This was no longer merely about physical protection, it was about harnessing their collective resolve. As they hurried down the corridor, Caleb stumbled, his panic surfacing. "What if they find us? What do we do then?" Charlie's heart sank at the boy's fear. It echoed sentiment he kept buried. He had felt like a ghost in his own life, and now the stakes were irrevocably real. "We focus," he replied, his voice steady, but it was a mantra he forged for himself as much as for Caleb. "We're going to upload that drive, then hit them where it hurts." The weight of responsibility pressed on him, tighter than the alley behind them. He could feel the burden of their lives resting on his shoulders. Would he crack under the pressure, or would he rise to meet it? Emerging from the passage, they found themselves at the back of the old office, dusty and abandoned. Broken windows rattled whispered secrets in the wind, the air thick with neglect. Charlie pushed the door open, revealing a room filled with rusting furniture and the remnants of forgotten work. "This will do," he declared, pleased at the stroke of luck. They entered cautiously, scanning for threats. The remnants of broken machinery and peeling wallpaper surrounded them, but for Charlie, it symbolized a chance to enact real change. "Get the computer up and running," the woman commanded, her intensity sharpening her features. Charlie watched her with renewed respect. She was a force, urging them into action without a moment's loss. It was empowering, the way she took charge, and he wanted that energy for himself. As she worked, Charlie's mind buzzed with thoughts of what lay ahead. He could feel the moment approaching, that pivotal point in which he must choose to either blur into the background or step into the fray. And right now, the latter called to him louder than anything had before. The computer hummed to life. "We have to be quick," the woman said, diverting her attention to Charlie. "While I upload the files, you need to guard the door." Every second felt like an eternity as he positioned himself at the entrance, ready to defend this newfound purpose. With each passing moment, he grappled with impulses seeking to undermine him. Doubt surged. What if he failed? What if he was wrong? But suddenly, a noise splintered his thoughts. The unmistakable sound of heavy footsteps closing in, this time sharper and quicker. His heart plummeted. Time was running out. They might have already tracked them. Panic threatened to overcome him, but the quiet strength grew clearer. It wasn't just about him anymore, it was about Caleb, Mia, and the potential to unearth the truth. He steadied himself against the doorframe, readying for confrontation. "Almost there," the woman urged, fingers flying across the keyboard. "You can do this," he whispered to himself, summoning an edge he didn't know he possessed. A resolve solidified as the voices outside grew louder. The time for complacency was over. The shadows that haunted him had transformed into a battleground. Then, as if a match ignited within him, he realized, this was the moment he would shape his destiny, no longer a passive observer of his life, but the architect of it. Would he rise to propel them through the storm, or would he falter in the face of danger? Suddenly, the door buckled under the pressure, splintering as the figures of their pursuers surged from the darkness. What had Charlie unleashed, and could he embrace the full measure of his newfound strength before it all collapsed around him? The door splintered further, a cracking echo that sent a shockwave through Charlie. At that moment, doubt clenched his insides. He had taken the reins of this precarious mission, but what if he couldn't safeguard the group? The figures looming in the shadows were just as desperate as they were, possibly more dangerous. Would his decision to resist lead them all to safety or a deeper pit of despair? Charlie. Mia's voice broke through his fog of uncertainty. We have to stay back. He barked, instinctively stretching his arm to shield them. The weight of the moment pressed upon him, and he was acutely aware that every person in that room depended on him. He couldn't falter. Turning his attention back to the door, he took a breath and prepared himself, muscles tightening like a coiled spring. A vision flashed in his mind, an image of himself emerging victorious, holding fast to the reins of his fate. He could be that protector, the hero. The door swung open violently, revealing two men, faces etched with aggression. Panic surged anew, yet Charlie found clarity amid the chaos. A voice inside him, a whisper of the courage he had buried, urged him to act. Stay behind me, he shouted at Mia and Caleb. And as quickly as those words left his mouth, he charged forward, pushing through the fear that wrapped around him like a suffocating shroud. He had never fought before, never had a reason to summon such adrenaline-fueled primal instincts. But now, with everything on the line, he felt a fierce determination overcome him. He pushed one assailant back, throwing off balance the man before he could recover. Charlie's body moved with a newfound agility, the thrill of raw power rushing through him. He was no longer simply reacting, he was choosing. Beside him, he caught a glimpse of the woman, her fingers flying across the keyboard without hesitation. She was in her own battle, a focused, fierce energy emanating from her. For a fleeting moment, he was struck by respect for her, a sense of kinship born out of shared peril. But he couldn't afford to let admiration distract him. Another punch landed inches from his face, and he retaliated, landing a blow that sent the attacker sprawling. Surging forward, he had never experienced such clarity. Every movement felt like an emboldened extension of his will, defying the fears that had once paralyzed him. Mia's voice rang out again, this time softer and more insistent. Charlie, the files. Swiftly, he glanced back, and in his peripheral vision, saw the woman making progress. The upload was almost complete. Time was not their ally, and every tick of the clock emphasized the urgency of their task. Just a few more seconds. She called, and he felt a surge of determination pulse through him, igniting a fierce protectiveness. It was as if the very storm of emotions inside him had coalesced into a blazing beacon of purpose. They were fighting for something far greater than just their lives. With one final shove, he pushed the last assailant back, forcing him to retreat into the shadows, momentarily suppressing the threat. Charlie's heart raced, and he reveled in the adrenaline that coursed through him. He didn't just defend, he had forged ahead, claiming a piece of dominion over his life that he never thought possible. Go! He yelled to Mia and Caleb, gesturing toward the back door. He would hold the line as they escaped. It was the moment of truth. This was the test of who he had always wanted to become. He stepped back into that narrow passage where choices had initially felt suffocating, now transformed into an avenue of liberation. He would become the man who stood firm in the face of danger. The moment was his to seize. Then a shout from the shadows, "You think it ends here?" echoed, sending a chill down Charlie's spine. A new threat emerged, unsettling as it was unmistakable. The challenge was only beginning. What had he truly awakened within himself, and could he protect not only them but his very soul in the process? The weight of the shadowy figure that loomed before him struck Charlie like a physical force. Panic threatened to overtake him again, that initial doubt creeping back into the corners of his mind. Yet, he had just experienced a glimpse of his potential. The courage and assertiveness he summoned made him feel electric. Could he summon that same resolve in the face of this new danger? "Who are you?" he demanded, forcing an edge of authority into his voice as he positioned himself defensively before Mia and Caleb, who were now edging closer to the exit. The echo of his own heartbeat pulsed in his ears as he struggled to project confidence. The figure stepped forward, a smirk plastered across his face, revealing a confidence that unnerved Charlie. "You're not in control here, boy," the man taunted. The words dripped with disdain, and in that moment, Charlie found himself in a contest of wills. Charlie felt the anger rising within him. He couldn't allow this man to bully him, no more. He had fought and clawed his way to this moment of clarity, and he wasn't going to back down now. "Watch me," Charlie replied, feeling the strength of his newfound identity. With a swift movement, Charlie lunged forward. The rational part of him understood that this was reckless, but in his bones, adrenaline fueled him. This was no longer just survival, this was about taking control of his narrative. He landed a solid blow to the man's midsection, driving the air out of him. The man staggered, shock flickering in his eyes. Charlie seized the moment, stepping into the fray, determined to maintain his momentum. "You don't know what you're dealing with," the man gasped, regaining some composure as he readied himself to retaliate. Charlie felt the shift, his breathing quickened as he let determination override fear. This wasn't a game anymore, it was a testament to his dedication, not just to his newfound allies, but to himself. The room felt charged, each action imbued with meaning. Just as he prepared for another assault, the tension broke when Mia's voice rang out, slicing through the haze around him. "Charlie, we have to finish this. You promised me." Her words held him steady. It was a rallying cry. Charlie realized that this wasn't solely about his capacity for physical confrontation, it was about leadership. He was fighting not only for himself but ensuring that Mia and Caleb would have a chance to escape. He retreated a step, scanning the area for a plan, for leverage. The flickering light from the screens behind him caught his eye. "Mia!" he shouted. "Can you override the security system?" "Yes. I can block their exit." She answered with a fierce urgency, fingers dancing across keys, each tap reflecting her sharp focus. A calculated risk swirled in his mind, buy them time. Charlie turned back to the assailant, the resignation in the man's posture revealing doubt rather than full control. "I don't need to win," Charlie announced, not quite grasping the depth of those words himself as he repositioned, lunging again but this time aiming for a feigned strike. It struck home. It was enough confusion to sidestep, throw off the man's balance, and slip past him towards the exit. "Now!" he urged, looking back at Mia, who was already twisting away from the laptop in triumph. As if in slow motion, he watched Caleb move toward the door, situated just behind the chaos. But then suddenly, a darker realization washed over Charlie as he felt the weight of the man's fury rear back. This was far from over. "You think you've escaped?" the man barked, gathering his bearings. "You don't know who you're messing with." There was more than mere adrenaline coursing through Charlie now. There was the bitter taste of determination and clarity, an unspoken promise that he would protect those who showed bravery alongside him. The moment wasn't just about fighting to stay alive, now it was personal. It always had been. The end of the confrontation felt tantalizingly close yet obscured by another layer of adversity. Charlie anticipated the true challenge ahead was unearthing everything he was truly capable of, and whether he could bring his allies through it. As the shadows began to intensify, he understood, this battle was not just physical, but a profound test of his soul. "Be ready," he warned, steadying himself for the next wave of conflict, even as darkness crept closer. He needed to lead them through the unknown, whether he was ready or not. The real question loomed, would he rise to the challenge, or would he falter when it mattered most? In the final moments of tension, as adrenaline coursed through his veins like wildfire, Charlie steeled himself. There was no backing down now, the air crackled with the urgency of the moment. The heavy footfalls of their pursuers echoed ominously from the alley, underscoring the reality that this was a pivotal juncture in not just his life, but in the lives of those he held dear. Charlie's newfound courage surged like a river breaking through a dam. He glanced back at Mia and Caleb, who were poised and ready at the door. "We stick together," he shouted, urgency vibrating through his voice. "We're getting out of this." The stranger still concealed in the oppressive shadows stepped back momentarily, allowing Charlie to forge a path forward. He lunged again, this time with precision, driving fear straight into his opponents. He wasn't merely defending anymore, he was reclaiming his story and the life he aimed to build for Mia. Now! He yelled, signaling for Mia to take charge. They were partners in this endeavor. She had evolved from the innocent bystander to an integral part of their collective fight for survival. In that charged moment, Mia's fingers flew over the keyboard, activating protocols in the system, while the woman backed her efforts with unwavering resolve. Upload complete. Let us go. She shouted, her voice illuminating the room with a blend of determination and hope. With every second ticking away, Charlie positioned himself like a barrier, absorbing the intensity of the aggressor's glare. We leave together. You can't intimidate us anymore, he declared, reaching deep within himself for the strength to manifest the resolve he would no longer suppress. As the assailant charged, Charlie ducked low, leverage flickering in his mind. He was acutely aware now of the stakes, of the legacy he wanted to build for Mia, a guiding truth that anchored him amidst the storm. With a powerful thrust, he redirected the attacker's energy, causing him to stumble backward as Charlie sprinted toward the door, ushering Mia and Caleb through. Keep moving. He commanded, charging behind them, fear now intermingled with exhilaration. He could hear the chaos unfurling behind him, the shouts of frustration and anger, yet Charlie also felt an awakening inside. The old patterns of timidity were replaced with a fierce resolve, as he seized upon the uncertainty and repurposed it into solid action. With every step they took down the alley, an unexpected lightness began to replace the heaviness he had borne for so long. He had acted not only as a protector but as a catalyst for change, confronting the darkness that sought to overrun them. The exit loomed ahead, a symbol not just of escape but also of liberation from burdens that had kept him shackled. Let us go. He urged, propelling the trio further into the freedom of the open air outside the cafe. As they surged into the daylight, Charlie took a deep breath of the fresh air, invigorated by the vibrant possibilities ahead. He glanced at Mia, who was no longer just an innocent observer but an active participant in their shared journey towards something greater. Are you okay? He asked, concern flickering in his eyes. We did it, Dad. We're okay. She exclaimed, her face illuminated with an infectious smile of triumph. In her enthusiasm, he saw hope not just for the moment, but a promise for the future. Caleb, still catching his breath, nodded in agreement, a spark of confidence ignited in his demeanor. That was incredible, he said, awe saturating his voice. I didn't know you had it in you. Charlie felt a swell of pride blossom from within, recognition not just of his physical actions, but of his metamorphosis into someone willing to take risks for the ones he loved. I'm done letting fear dictate my life, he muttered, almost in disbelief at his own resolve. A sense of clarity enveloped him as they traversed the streets away from the chaos. The struggles he had known for so long were beginning to fade into the background as new opportunities emerged, ones filled with promise and potential. He envisioned the small online store where he would sell handcrafted items born from his creative spirit, lessons transformed into tangible goals. Yet, even more profoundly, he recognized the commitment he had formed with Mia and Caleb. Together, they would turn their shared struggles into a foundation of hope and collective determination. He would no longer allow the residue of his past failures to relinquish his tenacity, instead, they would empower him to build something meaningful. As they reached a quieter corner of the bustling street, he turned to the two who had journeyed with him. We're starting fresh, he asserted, each word pouring out with conviction. We're going to build something together. With their faces beaming back at him, he felt a connection that transcended words. It was that moment, a true definition of unity forged through trials that represented their triumph over adversity. And in the heart of it all, Charlie knew he had finally stepped into his role as a father, not just one who provided and protected, but one who inspired and taught the importance of resilience. This journey would not just be their survival, it would be their legacy. Charlie looked ahead, envisioning the contours of the life they would build from this point on, not dictated by fear, but propelled by the courage he found in the face of uncertainty. Together, they had faced chaos and emerged victorious. Now, the only way forward was brighter than he ever imagined. Now was the time to act. The future beckoned, filled with potential waiting to be seized. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share.